Hi, Vijoe. Welcome to the All About Scale podcast.
Hey Vidhi, how are you today? And thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm doing good as well. Thank you. So, Vijoe, I'm looking forward to discussing all things scale with you. And as I do that, I would like to hear or maybe start with your career journey to scale, like specifically what type of career choices did you take at the right time, which contributed to your scale in your professional life?
Yeah, so no surprise that I'm an engineer by profession, right?
Yeah.
And post that I did my post graduation in Europe in Belgium, and I moved to UK. And my first job happened to be with Tesco. Tesco is
Hmm.
the world's largest retailer, no, so third largest retailer, sorry, right? And that happened to be a role in purchasing, right? So the role was purchasing analyst. And at that time, my ambition was to become a buyer because my master's was in supply chain management. So I thought
Okay.
it was a great role to become a buyer because normally, purchasing analyst gets a role as a buying assistant, then a buyer. That's how their career goes, right? So that's why I took that role in UK. But fortunately or unfortunately, that role didn't have anything about purchasing. It was all about BI of that time, right? The
Okay.
Access, SQL, VBA, building dashboards using VBA and all of that, right? That was a
Okay.
role. And I started loving that role, even though that wasn't my expectation for my career. And I did that role for pretty much like a year. And I happened to meet a friend within Tesco who was doing actual analytics, who agreed to mentor me, and I started learning analytics as in the statistics of that time and SAS of that time, basic machine learning of that time, right? I'm talking about 2004, right?
Hmm.
And that's how my career started in analytics. So I stayed with Tesco for 12 years, around 10 years in UK and 2 years in India, and and I moved to Honeywell for 2 years, and I started doing a bit of different stuff. In Tesco, I was managing the end-to-end of commercial majorly, right? Your spacing, ranging, display, your pricing, promotions, everything that's core retail, right?
Yeah.
I got an opportunity with Honeywell to do something very different. Honeywell was building a platform called Sentience. It's like their IIoT offering that they want to build. And my role was to build a product team, right? A team
Hmm.
that builds analytics products that they can monetize in the market in the space of energy optimization, predictive maintenance, smart factories, smart breweries, smart refineries, all of those things, right? So
Hmm.
that was a great opportunity. So I was there for 2 years, building a team and leading a team in Honeywell. And I stayed there for 2 years. And in 2016, 2018, I moved to ABI. ABI was setting up their center. And for the last 5 years in ABI, again, going back into a bit of what I was doing in my Tesco days. And then if you look at last 4 years, it's mostly in the non-commercial space, which is logistics, supply, procurement, finance, and people, right? So these are the
Yeah.
five functions which I own in API.
Yeah. And Vijay, there was very intriguing thing that you mentioned that back in 2004, when you were doing all kind of dashboards and everything, and then you started getting mentored in the field of analytics. I have a question. Like even I started as a journey not into pure play analytics, and it came along the way, right? So do
Yeah.
you see that learning something from academics and then coming prepared for the job makes more difference as compared to learning on the job? Like I learned on the job as well. I didn't do any formal education in this. So do you see some difference there?
I would definitely say difference, right? I mean, first of all, for me, it was not by design. It was by, it was written uh,
Mhm.
for me. So, and at that time, there was no analytics course or anything available like the way we today, right? But I think today's kids are more prepared, right?
Yeah.
If you because we have a huge, IIT and top university intake as an internship program, and then those who qualify, we offer them full-time jobs and all of that. So what I would definitely say is that what I knew after 4 years of career, pretty much they know by the time
Hmm.
they're coming to work, right?
Yeah.
So they're well prepared. They're not even starting after the college, right? They're starting in first year, second year. They're learning Python. They are experimenting stuff. And there are a lot of venues today, right? Like Kaggle,
Hmm.
UCLA. You get data sets. You
Yes.
can experiment, right? And that's the beauty of data science, right?
Hmm.
You're a lawyer. You need to get cases to prove your skills. You're a doctor.
Correct.
You need opportunity to do surgeries to be a surgeon, right? But in data science,
Hmm.
you don't need anything, right? Only if you know basic science and basic Python and basic coding skills, you can go and solve a lot of problem statements which is available online, right? Or in the platforms like Kaggle and UCLA and all, right? So I think
Mhm.
I would definitely. I was not lucky enough to do it in a formal way, but I would
Yeah.
say the today's generation are much more privileged. That even today, I'm surprised to see, right? In 2 years back, few years back, I started seeing MS or MTech in data science. But the
Mhm.
latest offering is there are engineering, which is data science oriented,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
so that's how it's going, right? So which is great. It's a great sign.
Okay. So do you think that the organic transition that you had now given the chance today, if you look back and you had to start again, you would prefer coming more prepared right from
I
the
will
college or
come
academies?
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely come more prepared. Right? My case is just happen to be.
Serendipity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And one more thing, I think somebody, when you mentioned about, I think in 2018, you mentioned that ABI was setting up the COE in India, and that's how you started this journey. So if somebody has to do that thing now, set up a COE, so what are the go-to steps? What kind of things a person should be aware of while they're establishing one?
First and foremost, right? I think analytics is no more a practice which is kind of a tick of a
Yeah.
must have, right? In the
Yeah.
sense that it has become pretty much like operations. It has pretty much like finance or your
Hmm.
logistics or your procurement, right? It has become
Hmm.
one of the basic functions of a company, right?
Hmm.
When we all started off, analytics was like a like a crown jewel, right? Okay, we have all the normal teams, and then you have a AI center of excellence, which is seen as a special team. But we lost that charm already, right? Today,
Hmm.
analytics needs to serve a purpose, and the serve purpose has to be creating value for the business, right?
Hmm.
So first and foremost, it's not about just building a center, but doing the groundwork to understand what is really important for the business, right? If you're starting a new center, right, and you cannot slice the entire thing in one go. So
Hmm.
probably you have to identify what are the 5 big things that I'm going to solve for the business, right? What
Yeah.
makes maximum impact for the business? And when you
Hmm.
think about impact for the business, we always imagine that every organization is a data rich organization, which is not at all
Hmm.
true. I think I always joke to my colleagues that even guys in Google and Amazon will be cribbing that there is no data to work, right? So
Yeah.
that's the reality, right? So we need to understand what are the problem statements that we can solve today with the data that we have, right?
Hmm.
I always believe that there's a delta that we can bring with
Hmm.
the data that we have. So because if you always aspire to do analytics when you have everything, such a day will be
Far off in the future.
far off in the future, right?
Yeah.
So I would say I would focus heavily on the preparation, right,
Hmm.
before starting a COE, right? Many of the centers of during my time in 2014, 15, and all. First, the center was built. Then you have like you recruit like 30, 40 people, 50 people. Then we'll start thinking of, okay, what should we do now that we have a
Hmm.
team, right? I think today's leaders, because I have a lot of colleagues who are setting up centers in India, or friends who are setting up centers in India for different GCCs and different companies. And what they all do is they do a year's work on building the awareness in that company, right?
Hmm.
What is data science meant to do and what it can do and what it cannot do, right?
Hmm.
Uh, how to approach data science problem statements,
Hmm.
brainstorming sessions with different functions and stakeholders to understand what are the biggest problem statements, using a framework to prioritize, right? Because
Hmm.
you will never have enough resources to do everything that you want to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably prioritizing the top 3 or top 5, right?
Hmm.
And that's I would just to keep the answer short, I would heavily focus on the background work that is required, right?
Hmm.
Uh, to know that, okay, if I have a 10-member team, what I can achieve. With 20 people, what I'll achieve. 30 people, what I'll achieve. And second thing,
Hmm.
definitely we would definitely need to think is the skill mix, right? Because
Hmm.
earlier data science meant data scientist, right? If 10 years
Hmm.
back, the definition of data science was you have 10 data scientists, that becomes a data science team, right? Today, that
Yeah.
definition is changing, right? You need to have
True.
a healthy mix of data engineers. You have a healthy mix of MLOps, a healthy mix
Hmm.
of DevOps, healthy mix of
Yeah.
testers, right? So you need to know what is the right mix of people that you would need. What is the data maturity in the organization that dictates the amount of people that we need on data
Hmm.
compared to analytics. Even I
Hmm.
know centers which build, I know companies which build like centers heavy on analytics, but very, very, very thin on data. And people
Hmm.
forget the fact that without data, there's no analytics, right?
Yeah.
Probably the next step is, right? Next step is obviously starting with the data strategy before the analytics
Hmm.
strategy, right?
Yeah.
So these 3 is what I would say, right? Knowing what you're going to do, prioritizing and agreeing on the biggest use cases and alignment with the business, right?
Yeah.
Second thing is having a data strategy in place to ensure that once we have a team, they have enough data to do what they should be supposed to be doing. And third, obviously, is having the right mix of people, right? What is the right
Yeah.
structure, the right mix of people that you would need to make it happen.
Yeah. I think that's very well put, Vijoe. I think there are certain open things that I would say like I like to zoom in. First is that when you mentioned like focusing on maybe for top 5 to 6 big things that you want to have as part of maybe what you see as a contribution for the next 3 to 4 years, for example, like it's your strategic vision. How do you have that forward looking lens? Like what should I pick today that's going to make an impact when it's the time, for example, for the maturity of that model or the any part of the analytics division that you're working on? It doesn't happen overnight, right? So you need to have that groundwork that you rightly mentioned. But you as a leader would have certain vision. How do you make sure that today you're taking the right step to execute that vision successfully?
No, so every company has also a 1 year and 3 year and 10 year vision, right?
Yeah.
Most of the companies I know of, they all have a long-term vision on where they want to play, right? What's their future playground, right? For example, ABI, our focus is heavily on digitization, right? Today, 50% of our sales is coming from digital platforms, right? So we want platforms that can allow us to talk directly to the customers, interact directly to the customers, rather than having multiple layers in between, right?
Okay.
So I know what is the vision of my company. My company's vision is, or vision rather, is to have enough digitization, great B2B and D2C platforms, right? That will help us to interact more with our customers, understand their likes, and start giving offerings that personalize for them, right? So I would start there. I will try to understand what is the long-term vision of a company, right? Not
Yeah.
today's vision, but in the next 3 years, 5 years, what is the company trying to achieve, right? And what is the top strategy of the company, right?
Okay.
And that strategy kind of helps you to understand, okay, my vision of the company for the next 5 years is getting there, right? Getting there, what are the things which we need to build in the background so that when everything is set up, right,
Yeah.
they also have the right setup within the analytics practice to act as an enabler for the bigger vision, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely focus on the long-term vision that a company got to understand, and in certain areas, right? In certain areas, we don't need to think too much about the long-term vision also, right? Think about basic sales and marketing, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, the problem statements are everywhere the same. So one of the things I strongly believe is that most of the GCCs or most of the centers in India or not in India, right, across the globe,
Yeah.
we are solving every day. We are not solving something which nobody has solved, right? You think about everything, right? You think about price optimization, your
Yes.
discount optimization, your market mix models, right? Your inventory
Inventory
optimization,
optimization. Yeah.
your predictive maintenance, right? You name it, right? These are all common across every company that you look at, right? Only thing what we are doing is we are customizing that solution for you, right? So
Yeah.
your company. So apart from product companies which works on the whole thought process of building technology for sales, right? So you think about pure play technology companies, right? Their offering itself is it's a technology or an analytics
Yeah.
offering. But apart from them, every other business that we normally work for, we only do two things, right? We try to increase our sales, or we try to reduce our cost. So this is the
Cost. Yeah.
crux of every company. Every company that
Yeah.
you work for, either you need to use analytics to increase your sales, or you should use analytics to reduce overheads and reduce the cost of production, right?
Yeah.
So that, the common themes are pretty much set. You don't have to think too much, right?
Yeah.
When I said prioritization, you should know, will I focus first on marketing or logistics? Should I focus on price or promo? So that's the order that we need to think of, right? What is our highest value? But
Yeah.
otherwise, I don't believe that 99% of the centers that we have, they are not solving something which is completely unknown to humankind, right?
Yeah.
They're solving
Yeah.
something which is already solved by somebody. We are
Yeah.
customizing it because every company has a different constraints, different ways of working, right?
Hmm.
Overall, everybody knows what is price optimization, right?
Yeah.
Price elastic curves, for example. Everybody knows how it works, but
Yes.
it doesn't mean that what works for Walmart works straight away for Target, right?
Yeah.
So that's our job, right? Our job is to customize, understand the constraints of each of the business that we work in, and create solutions which is more customized for our need.
Yeah. And Vijay, when you mentioned that every company has a 3, 5, or 10-year vision, right? And starting from the long-term goal, and then you kind of break it down to where we stand today. I believe that maybe since the onset of COVID or the kind of macroeconomic conditions we all are going through, everybody is thinking off the feet and, kind of changing gears and quickly being very agile into what needs to be done to survive today. So do you also see that happening when we are focusing a little more on short term to make sure that we survive, and then we'll think of how to thrive? So are there some changes in the strategy that happen that way?
No, two things, right? One definitely I would say that COVID was a huge boost for analytics, right? Because
Yeah.
COVID taught us a lot of new
Yeah.
things, right? And many of those learnings are going to stay with for us forever, right? And the world never saw the amount of digitization that happened over the last 3 years, right? The amount of money that was invested on digitization, because businesses were warming up to that idea that the future is digital, right?
Yeah.
And the amount of money that's gone into digitization is like huge, right?
Hmm.
And everything changed. Your shopping patterns changed. Your
Hmm.
spend patterns changed, right? Your
Yeah.
expectations changed. So which means that everything that was right in 2020 may not be good enough in 2023, right? Let's take just a demand forecasting model, right?
Correct. Yeah.
A solution that was giving 99% accuracy in 2020
Yeah. It's not
uh,
working the same anymore. Yeah.
anymore, right? Today we look at different factors, right? And the data was always a very expensive commodity, but it has become even more expensive commodity, right? There are
Yeah.
companies who are selling data on your employment index, your COVID spread in different areas, all of those things, right? So what I'm saying is that it's a huge boost for the analytics fraternity, because it's a complete reset pretty much for every business.
Yeah.
Think different and operate in the new world. That's one thing. And the strategy, definitely, right? I definitely would say that it has to be a balanced investment on what is important for today and what is for future. Because put it this way, right? Even the 5-year plans are very, very prone for changes, right? Because
Yeah.
if a 5-year plan that was built in 2020 may not hold good in 2022 or 21,
True.
because
Yeah.
along came the tiger, right? Along came the COVID in between.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you should be really careful about how much investments we should do, right? But analytics is an iterative science, and it's a space where we need to take chances, right? Because if you only bet on what we know, then we will be very much constrained, right?
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you really think about companies that are really doing great work in analytics, they consider 50% conversion as a great conversion, which means that if they take up 10 projects, right, and if 5 of them are doing well, and the 5 of them would actually pay for the all 10.
Yeah.
So and that's all I'm saying, is that analytics is a space where you need to really think out of the box, take some chances, right? And it's an unknown till we get to the very last stage. In analytics,
Yes.
you never know whether we will get the answers or not, right? One more
Correct.
thing I always tell to when I go to universities and all, when I meet youngsters, always something I would say is that data either have a story to tell or it doesn't have a story to tell, right? If it has a story to tell, use the right techniques. Yeah, you pamper the data, use the right techniques, all of that, it will tell you the story. But if it
Yeah.
doesn't have a story to tell, how much ever you beat it up, it's not going to tell you the
It
story
won't
that
confess. Yeah.
it's not going to confess.
Yeah.
So it's that's what I'm saying, right? It's an unknown. Everything pretty much that we do is an unknown, right? And that's the beauty
Yeah.
of this, and that's what really that's what I love most about my job, right? Because
Yeah.
everything is an unknown, right? So I would say a healthy, it should be healthy enough that while we know that we are operating on, or we are focusing on things which I know that will for sure will deliver, it's also important to put some investments on thinking beyond what is a norm, right?
Yeah.
So but obviously it cannot be 50-50 or
Yes.
something like that. But I would say at least 70% needs to be on what is important for today, 30% needs to be on the future. Because it has also a different element, right? Maybe I'm jumping the queue here, but everybody, right? Everybody wants to do something challenging. Everybody wants to do something new, something,
Yeah.
different,
Cutting edge. Yeah.
cutting edge, different, right?
Yeah.
And data science also becomes operations after the first time. First time when you build a
True.
solution, it's like, I mean, it's a very great experience. Oh, I built something
Yeah.
great,
Overwhelmingly good. Yeah.
overwhelmingly good, right?
Yeah.
Brilliant. But second time when you do it, it's just an operations, right? It's a
True.
manual exercise. So that's why, even for building a COE, and when you're thinking of the right retention strategy, you should definitely put some investment on projects which is an unknown, which is very vague, right? Where that stretches people's mindset and their thinking and their thought process, right?
True.
And that
Yeah.
really helps us to retain people also, right? If I only tell them that, guys, demand forecasting is working very well now, everybody works for demand forecasting for 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Or price optimization is working well, everybody works on price optimization for 2 years, they won't be happy, right? We'll be like,
Yeah.
I'm doing the same thing from morning to night, right? So we try to ensure that there's enough time for people to learn and experiment, and that comes
Yeah.
from the futuristic, future solutions, right? So I would definitely put some energy, right? At least 30% of the time, I would definitely put on, things which
Yeah.
are not fully known to us.
Yeah. And which are like the things like in maths, it happens like the farther the thing it is in the future, the more volatility it carries, right? So you are not really sure about how it will turn out. And I think because of the tough times that we all are seeing here, people are looking for, because the times are uncertain, they are looking for somewhere a certainty around the projects that we pick, right? So, and you also discussed that analytics is something which is iterative by nature. You don't know till the last time whether it's going to bear the fruits that we are originally looking for. So, and till this all happens, and we are saying that there needs to be an element of innovation. You are ready to fail at certain number of times to make sure wherever you succeed, you are succeeding well enough to compensate for the failures, right? So how should industry be prepared of betting on analytics in these times when they're looking for certainty in the projects, more deterministic nature kind of thing, that whatever works to make me survive today, I'll just focus on that, and other things maybe I'll just do when the time is right. So is this approach really right, or should we still park some bandwidth there?
I would say this approach is wrong, at least
Okay.
based on my
Yeah.
thought process, right? What matters is the overall ROI.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're investing 1 million, and if you're promising 5 million back as ROI, that has to happen, right? But it's not a must that if I'm doing 10 projects, that ROI has to come from one from each project and make it 10. It could be 3 projects paying off for rest 7, right?
Okay.
So as long as, and first and foremost thing is, the equation on value creation is becoming super important. Gone are the days where you'll get a blank check saying you're building an AI COE, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Business is not doing well, but since you're building AI COE, I'll give you money. Those days are gone.
Yeah.
This is just another division of any company, right? So for us to justify what we are doing, the outcome has to be value creation, right? It's non-negotiable. That I totally agree. But I still believe that, some with obviously calculated risk, right? There are projects which will take 2-3 years to even materialize because of
True.
change management challenges and all of that, right? There are solutions which are easy to implement because the decision on adoption is a person's choice or a function's choice. But there are projects where a choice of adoption is a enterprise-wide decision, right? And which takes longer time for change management decisions, right? So I would still bet in such a way that overall the ROI I'm promising has to be met, but within that there should be enough space for experimentation, because that keeps the funnel also live. Because
Yeah.
every year we will get this question, right? What are you doing next, right? And that's and what is the 1YP for the next year, right? And that
Yeah.
rightfully so, right? We cannot be doing the same thing again and again. We should be looking at bigger problem statements, bigger value, right?
Yeah.
More critical solutions. So having investments on experimentation keeps that funnel always live, right? Otherwise, you'll reach a point where you don't know what you're going to do next, because you already betted on the long-hanging fruits, and that's how everybody starts, right? Every center
Yes.
in India or across the globe, they start with attacking the long-hanging fruits, which is very obvious. But a real test of analytics centers, as in COEs, right? It starts after 50 year,
Okay.
right? First 5 years is an easy ride because I'm talking about a medium to large organization, right? They will all have enough problem statements to tackle in the first 5 years, which is
True.
usual suspects that
Yeah.
will go after, right? But the real test of center starts from the year 5 or 4 or 5, right? Where you are done with all the usual suspects, and the ask is to find the new delta, right?
That's the true innovation that comes out, right? Yeah.
That's where the real pressure comes, right? I don't think the pressure
Yeah.
comes in the first 5 years in
Yeah.
any COE, right? The pressure
Yeah.
comes after the 50th year when you're done with everything that's long hanging fruits.
True.
And that's why, right, from the year 1, if you are putting some investments on experimenting, right, that keeps a funnel live, right? So you don't have to think what next, because you already know you experimented 6. In that 6, 2 worked out, 4 failed, but 2 is still becoming the funnel for next year, right?
True.
So answer to the question is yes, it's super important for any organization.
Yeah. And somewhere when you mentioned that term ROI, which is, I think I'll just try to, break it down a bit. When we say about ROI is on a year basis, on a project basis, because when you mentioned some project might take longer than 2-3 years or so. So how do you perceive, how should I tell that what is the return it is giving on the year on which I'm making those calculations, right? So, yeah.
It's a great question, Vithi, right? Uh, every year when somebody pitches for a capex,
Yeah.
It's based on the assumption that the return is going to come in 3 years or 2 years or whatever, right? But I haven't seen many companies which have the science of tracking the value creation
True.
of ROI from the investments, right?
Yeah.
First
Yeah.
year everybody is super alert. We gave you 2 million. What's happening in the first year? Second year already another investment has happened, and this becomes an unknown, right? So, but today companies are waking up. Today companies are waking up big time, right? For example, in ABI, we're building something called resource allocation framework, right? It's all about how we're going to track every investment throughout his life cycle and see what is the value coming from, right? But that maturity is happening today, right? And if you think about 5 years or 10 years back, it was always about first year, what will you do? How much you will give back, right? Nobody really thinks about second year, what happened to the same solution? Third year, what happened to the same solution? But today, money is scarce, right? Money is really scarce in any business. Today, people are thinking, a bit more louder. They are saying that, guys, if you ask for a 2 million and with ROI of XYZ, we're going to track it for next 5 years on how this investments how materialized, or what is the value that's coming from these investments, right?
Yeah.
So the important thing is having a right framework for quantifying the value from investments, right? So if you talk about analytics, especially with you, right? I strongly believe that the effort required in quantifying the real value from analytics is much more than the effort required to do a project, and that's very much true in the case of top line projects, right? Marketing or sales. Put it this way, right? Think about a company which there are 5 functions, right? One function is doing a price optimization solution. Another one is doing a discount optimization solution. Another one is doing a promo optimization solution. Somewhere upsell cross-sell solution is also being deployed, right? There is a marketing vehicle that is also giving new thoughts on marketing and all of that. And the common why, if you as an analytics, why is outcome is sales growth, right? So we have 6 departments doing 6 different projects, all supposed to be increasing the revenue of the company or the sales of the product. The amount of building these individual solutions, one in price optimization, one in discount, and one promo, that's fairly a straightforward or decently straightforward task. But identifying what each of these initiatives finally contributed to the final sales increase or decrease or whatever you see, that's where it becomes more difficult. So I strongly believe that in data science, what really need to come is credibility to numbers that we are quoting, right? The numbers that we quote needs to be credible. And for us to be able to quote credible numbers, there should be enough science or enough investments again to ensure that we are putting enough investments and enough science to quantify these numbers, right? Otherwise, it becomes double or triple or, if 5 parties are counting the same sales uplift as the
Yeah,
outcome,
true.
right? And so if it's 100K, it becomes already 500,000 because 5 teams already counted that as their contribution, because of which the sales growth has happened, right?
Yeah.
So for me, the need of the hour is having a good resource allocation framework, right? A right framework to define the success of a project, and most importantly, how to measure the success of a project, how to evaluate not just the first year, but the life cycle cost or life cycle outcome of a solution, right? But today the
Yeah.
market is really warming up to those ideas. I've seen many companies thinking in the same manner, right? Not just investment, but how to invest and how to get returns back from those solutions. I think it's a very relevant topic for today.
Yeah, and all those points that you mentioned, right, Vijoe, that which projects to be picked up, which one is maybe low-hanging fruits is the immediate impact that you see, and the true innovation comes when you go and nail down into that area and figure out which project is going to make a bigger impact on the top line, or maybe it's effectively the net bottom line, right? I just wanted to see that all the risk or dependencies that are there for each and every project that we pick up, we kind of decide that today, because that's gonna decide what kind of bottlenecks we're gonna face when the project goes to maturity. All these, I think, become a part of AI strategy or analytics strategy, the strategy part of analytics division of the project, right? Now there are related terms in the market: business strategy, data strategy, AI strategy. And when we were initially discussing that data has to be in place. So if I have to put these things in hierarchy, do you think that business strategy is the main goal, is the starting point for us? Then data and AI strategy, there is an intersection and overlap which inherit from business strategy, or would you put it in a sequence that this is business strategy for which we need to have a data in place, and then we'll decide on the AI part of it? How would you rank order them?
So I would rank order in such a way that business strategy comes first,
Yeah.
right? And based on business strategy, we need to define what is the need of the hour for the business. And based on the need of the hour for the business, we need to define what solutions are to be built. And for those solutions to be built, what data should be available. So when I said data should be available, right, with you, right? Think about it. Most of the companies uses one or other ERP system, right?
Yeah.
And one common trait about all these ERP systems is that data is there. You can see it, but you cannot feel it.
Yeah.
Because you go to SAP and try to download 1 petabyte of data, the entire system, the IT department will fire you for that, right? Because
Yeah.
they will hang, right? So that's a challenge with most of the ERP systems, right? You cannot data is available somewhere, but you can only see it on the screen, but you cannot use that data, right?
Yeah.
And second thing is, when you think about scalability, right? Data, I'm not saying cloud, because sometimes people think that data can only be in cloud.
Correct. Yeah.
Cloud or premise or wherever it is. Data should be in a data warehouse without restrictions for access.
Okay.
Right? And that cannot be direct connection to the ERP anyway, right? That has to be a database. Somebody goes with AWS, somebody goes with Azure, somebody goes with a on-premise solution. It's up to them, but data needs to be accessible, right? Then only there is scalability in analytics, right? Think about it. Again, if I give an example of demand forecasting solution, a solution that was built and it's working beautifully in Brazil. And if the next task is to build the same solution for 50 top countries of the business, the investment that you really require is in the whole world is the first solution costed 2 data scientists and 100K.
Yeah.
You have to just multiply that into 50 markets, and that's the cost of building that. But today, that is not the case, because all the thinking companies, at least, they have the data in a cloud or in premise, which is accessible to everyone. The cost of scaling is pretty much 1/10 of the cost I was referring to earlier.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's why the data strategy should be the second step, right? If I know that these are the things which are important for the business and the solutions I'm going to building, somebody needs to be really thinking about what is the right data strategy, what are the data sets I'm going to bring to cloud, because even cloud is becoming a super expensive exercise, right? Your Azure,
I know.
like it hits the
Yeah.
roof, right? People
Yeah.
believe that it's cool to think all on
Yeah.
cloud, working on cloud. But
Yeah.
when you see the bill, that's where the narrative
And
changes.
that's where the net ROI comes. When you account for
Net
the cloud
ROI
bills,
comes.
you realize net ROI is everything gone. Yeah.
Exactly, right. Your cost of a project is not the cost on data science or data science operations, right? The cost of
Yeah.
infra, the cost of data,
Compute resources. Yeah.
everything.
Okay.
So the second step that needs to follow is the data. But having said that with you, right? Ideally, we need to start parallelly, right? While the focus needs to be on bringing the data, in a specific format across the globe and all of that. Parallelly, we should also start working on those use cases. Why? Because every solution starts with
Yeah.
a POC. That's how the greatest solutions that we are experiencing today. I'm sure, right? Every app that we are using or every solution that we are using today, everything started as a small POC, right?
Yeah.
That applies to data science also, right? If you have 10 solutions to be built, first what you build is a 10 POCs, right? Those POCs, we don't need data on cloud or it can be in any storage, right? As long as even if it's in your desktop or your laptop, it's still fine. You're building a solution just to prove a case, going back to your customer, your stakeholder, seeing whether it's making them use it for ensuring that they adopt that solution for 3 or 4 months, see how the business scenarios changes after they're using the solution, and then only we will think of scaling, right? So it's also important to really have equal focus on, while data becomes an even bigger problem statement, data science, we shouldn't start data science we shouldn't go with the idea of I will start my data science when everything is available on the cloud or on premise, right? So I would equally focus on both. I would pretty much equally focus on both. But like I said, investments of data is huge. So the order of course is business, data, analytics, but still the analytics part has to pretty much parallelly start when the data discussions are starting, so that we know that by the time data is available, we have 10 POCs that we started with, at least 5 are working very nice, very, very effectively, and that's our solution which will build us global solutions.
Yeah, in fact, Vishal, just correct me if I'm wrong. So I was also thinking that the reason that AI strategy or analytics strategy, whatever we call it, go hand in hand with data strategy as well, because when we are choosing which projects to be picked up first, maybe the top priority projects, we kind of make sure that is it gonna be something which is a horizontal thing that if once built is giving the capability to rest of the verticals or not, rather than something which is very narrow focus. So if these kind of decisions are gonna be taken in terms of trade-offs, that also kind of hand in hand decide what kind of data would we want or which one would we pick first. So
exactly. So in our world, at least, we don't go with this idea of, because it's a mature practice now. It's like 5, 6, 7 years old practice. Today we don't go with this idea of let's bring the data and do analytics. We first do something, prove it, and then say that let's bring this data to cloud, right? Because the cost of data is equally expensive as that of data science, or more expensive than that than that of data science. Because that's what I was saying earlier now with you, right? Many thought that analytics is all about data scientists, and a lot of investments on building 50-member data science team with zero investments on data, and then they found that this is not enough because equal investment is required on the data side also.
Yeah. And then you were saying, right, that data should be accessible. So this looks like a little broad statement, and I think there is little more to it. Like if data is easily accessible, then there is this governance side of it which comes, right? So what are the go-to governance steps that you would say every entity must have in place to make sure data accessibility is not compromised?
Yeah. So before getting into the governance, right? First step is to understand what needs to be really brought to the cloud or brought to a database, right? Because think about a brewery, right? With 3,000 variables being submitted and measured, right, using IoT sensors. You may find that out of the 3,000, I only actually require data of 50 sensors, which is actually helping me to make most of the decisions I want to make, right? So the first step is to understand what data is important for me to bring, because sometimes we go this thought process. Okay, we are capturing 3,000 variables. Let's bring all 3,000 variables, and it's IoT data, which is like a second by second data, right? Let's bring everything to cloud, and then it becomes it's difficult to manage situation, right? So first thing is about data strategy, right? What is important for me? Every data set that we bring, every data that we have, it's not required by us, right? If we took SAP, there will be like 10,000 tables and another 50,000 or 100,000 columns. Do we need all of them? No. right? So we need to know first what data sets are required to solve the problem statement. Second thing is about governance, right? Governance is super important because today, it was an unknown thing for me, at least till 7-8 years back. The word like data privacy, data policy, Europe has their own, data policies. Now everybody is bringing their own data policies. I heard that in India we are coming with our own data privacy policies.
Yes.
It's very important. It's very important, right? Because it's very important to have awareness and knowledge about these topics. For example, today we have a compliance team which is working with the data science team to ensure that we are doing the right things and we are not making any mistakes with respect to the data that we're using. Because for a data scientist, it's very difficult to know what is the customer data, what is the data that needs to be used, what shouldn't be used, what shouldn't be touched, what shouldn't be published outside. All those things at a data science level. A 3-year-old data scientist, his job is mainly focused on building
modeling side.
On the modeling side rather than thinking about what can be used, what cannot be used, what cannot be exposed, all of that. So today, with all these legislations in place, regulations in place, even having a compliance team is becoming a must for every data science practice. So every solution that we're building, we are ensuring that goes through a compliance process to ensure that we are not stepping onto anything which we are not supposed to do, right? So first thing is knowledge of what's happening across the globe with respect to policies, and that I don't think can be absorbed by a data scientist or all your 100 data scientists. You need a dedicated person or one or two who knows, whose full-time job is on compliance and legal to understand all the challenges and all the regulations with respect to them, and who all should access data. That's also very important, right? Because one common challenge we see is that if there is a COE, there are 5 different people downloading the same data and putting in 5 different blob storages.
Absolutely.
Right?
It happens.
And again, the blob storages are not for free. That again is adding to your cost, right? So who have access to the data centrally for a function, right? For a problem statement, for a set of tables is also very important. Otherwise everybody believes that data is in cloud. Let's take this set of data to another VM for us to do our experiments, right? And if 10 people does that, think about the cost of maintaining those 10 things, right? So 3 things, right? First thing is data strategy with respect to what is required, what is absolutely required for you to make something happen. That's the first thing. Second thing is obviously the knowledge of what's happening across the globe with respect to policies, and somebody with like a compliance person helping us to ensure that we are adherent to all the policies is very important, right? Third thing is ensuring that only the right people got access. Probably somebody who's a product owner or somebody who's managing a project has access, rather than everybody getting the same access and duplicating.
So I think that was great. We are approaching time, but I have one last question, and this is unrelated to what we have discussed so far. But at one point, you mentioned that when you initiate a project, right, and you're about to reach the maturity of that project, that we are at the life cycle of the project, how do you know that if a project is not materializing to what we originally signed up for? So if there's a deviation, you expected some results to come, and that's when you invested a lot on this, and that doesn't really happen. Maybe out of 5 projects, 4 just are doomed. Then who takes the bullet?
Normally it's the leader who needs to take the bullet, but I think as long as the overall ROI of what we signed up for is still achieved, I don't think it needs to be seen as a failure, right? And obviously, when you say there's a saying in our world, fail fast.
True.
Right? So there's an art of failing fast also. That's also I should explain, right? Because you cannot say that I failed after spending 4 people for 2 years or 1 year, right? I used one resource for 2 months. I found that this is not going to work out and I failed. It's okay, right? So the art is failing fast, right? It shouldn't be for anybody, right? They cannot be going and saying that I invested $1 million, right, and failed after the end of the year, saying because I just failed. That won't be acceptable, right? So the art is failing fast, right? than failing fast and moving on to the next big thing. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I would always tell. That's what I always tell to my team, right?
Okay.
Be first of all, think loud, think big, right? That data science is an experimental space. You need to experiment to get to bigger solutions and bigger ideas, but fail fast. Don't sit on a problem statement forever, right? If you're failing,
Yeah.
show that you're failing super fast. Then it's fine.
Yeah. And that takes me to another question, which is a follow-up to this. So it still counts as the last question. When do you know it's the right time to kill a project? Is it just money driven that I have a fund and these many, FTEs have been spending time on these many months and it's time to call it off, or there's a trick or maybe art associated with it, which is more than just the numbers?
Yeah, there are two reasons why a project fails, typically, right? One, your data set that you have doesn't justify, doesn't really help you to solve that problem statement, right?
True. Yeah.
There's a missing link which kind of becomes a huge roadblock, right? And probably that data set is not even available for internally or externally to address that gap, right? That's one way a project fails. Second way a project fails is change management, right? We have everything, right?
Yeah.
We build a solution, but a department says that, guys, it's great, but at this given point of time, right? We don't think we can make such a big shift in our ways of working by bringing this solution and disturbing the ecosystem for the time being, right? So project fails for two reasons, right? Data challenges and the change management challenges, right? So data challenges is very easy, right? Because pretty much in the second, third month that it's not happening, right? Because if you build a solution with 50% accuracy, you have some faith that, man, I can take it to 80 or 90, right?
Yeah.
But in 2 months, you are not getting even to 10%, you know that it's not happening without that specific data set, right? So in that case, the failure is super fast. You don't have to think too much, right? Where it becomes too tricky is, the changes in the business and all of that, where you end up building a solution, but still consumption becomes a problem because of change management solutions, right? And that's exactly why change management again becomes a super important topic in analytics. So for example, we have change managers in our COE, right? Because why the second scenario happens is mostly because, right, we use somebody's there who's very imaginative, very enthusiastic, want to change the world with a solution, but zero alignment with business, zero knowledge of the business. Nobody has bought into this idea, right? And that's where the second problem statement which I said happens, right? So that's why having the right change management in process in place is very important. Having the right alignment on consumption is very important, right? So as long as you do that, as long as you do enough investments before a project on getting the alignments with the right sponsors, having this as a target for adoption for everybody who's concerned in the same department or team, right? Those teams ensures that the second scenario doesn't happen, right? So in an ideal world, the second scenario shouldn't happen if you are the way you operate. But the first scenario, it can happen to anybody. But in that case, you don't have to think too much when to stop. You have to stop thinking because
data tells you to stop.
Yeah. And I don't believe honestly that I honestly believe that every solution needs to be super successful, as in it's all about the investment that you make, right? As long as a delta we are bringing and that delta is much more than the investment, I really think that having a product to project is the right thing to do, right? But if the investments is much more than the outcome, that's where you say that it's not happening, because if I do it, there's no
this
ROI.
equation is not gonna work out.
This equation is not gonna work.
Yeah.